Mathilde Loisel was an unusually pretty and charming girl, born into a very ordinary family of junior employees. It seemed almost like an error of fate. Although a natural beauty, she had no money for fine clothes and no expectations of meeting and marrying anyone rich or important. So she let herself be married to a young clerk who worked in the Ministry of Public Instruction. But she was unhappy. She felt that she deserved a better life. A simple home made her suffer, the bare walls, the old chairs, and the ugliness of the curtains. All those things, which never bothered her neighbors, hurt her and made her angry. She dreamed of a beautiful house with servants and large rooms with priceless pictures on the walls. She imagined chatting and laughing there with rich and famous people. Her husband was different. At their simple evening meals, he said things like, "Ah, good soup. I don't know anything better than that," while she thought sadly of sophisticated dinners with shining silver and food served on expensive plates. She had a friend, a former school friend, who was rich. But Mathilde did not often visit this friend's beautiful home because she suffered so much afterwards, crying from grief, regret and despair. However, one evening her husband arrived home looking very pleased and holding a large envelope in his hand. "Here," he said, "there is something for you." She opened it and read these words. "The Minister of Public Instruction and Madame Georges Ramponneau request the honor of Monsieur and Madame Loisel's company at a grand reception at the Palace of the Ministry on Monday evening, 18th January. Instead of being happy and excited, as her husband had hoped, she dropped the invitation on the table, saying, "What do you wish me to do with that?" "Well, my dear, I thought you would be glad. You never go out, and this is such a fine opportunity. I had great trouble to get it. Everyone wants to go, and they're not giving many invitations to clerks. The whole official world will be there." She said impatiently, "And what do you wish me to wear?" He had not thought of that. He said, "What about that nice dress you wear on special occasions? It looks very good on you." He stopped because he saw that his wife was crying. Two great tears ran slowly down from her eyes towards her mouth. "What's the matter? What's the matter?" he asked. By a huge effort she overcame her great sadness and replied in a calm voice while she wiped her wet cheeks, "Nothing. Only I have no suitable dress, and therefore I can't go. Give your card to a colleague whose wife is better equipped than I am." He was in despair. But then he said, "Come on, let's see, Mathilde. How much will it cost? A suitable dress, something good but very simple." She thought for several seconds, wondering how much she could ask without risking an immediate refusal and a frightened exclamation from the economical clerk. Finally, she replied, "I think I could manage it with 400 francs. His face went slightly pale because he was laying aside just that amount to buy a sporting gun and enjoy a little shooting next summer with some friends. But he said, "All right. I'll give you 400 francs. And try to find a pretty dress." The day of the grand event drew near. Her new dress was ready, but Madame Loisel seemed sad, uneasy, anxious. So her husband said to her one evening, "What's the matter? You've seemed rather strange these last 3 days." She answered, "It annoys me not to have a single piece of jewelry, not one. I shall look very poor. I would almost rather not go." "You could wear natural flowers," said her husband. "They're very stylish at this time of year. For 10 francs you can get 2 or 3 really nice flowers." She was not convinced. "No," she said, "there's nothing worse than looking poor among rich women." "Ah, how stupid we are!" her husband cried. "Go and see your friend, Madame Forestier, and ask her to lend you some jewelry. You know her well enough." She cried out with joy, "True. I never thought of that." The next day she went to her friend and told her about her problem. Madame Forestier went to a wardrobe, took out a large jewelry box, opened it and said to Madame Loisel, "Choose, my dear." First Mathilde saw some silver bracelets, then a pearl necklace, then a gold pendant set with precious stones. She tried on the jewels in front of the mirror, hesitated and could not make up her mind. She kept asking, "Have you any more?" "Yes, of course." "Keep looking. I don't know what you like." Suddenly she discovered, in a box with a soft black cover, a superb diamond necklace. Her heart beat faster with an almost violent desire. Her hands shook as she took it. She placed it round her neck and admired her reflection in the mirror. Then she asked, hesitating, filled with anxious doubt, "Will you lend me this, only this?" "Yes, certainly." Mathilde threw her arms round her friend's neck, kissed her passionately, then hurried home with this treasure. The night of the great occasion arrived. Madame Loisel was a great success. She was prettier than any other woman there. She was elegant, beautiful, smiling, clever and wild with joy. All the men looked at her, asked her name, and wanted to dance with her. The most important people wanted to be introduced to her, even the minister himself. She was almost crazy with pleasure, forgetting everything except her wonderful success. She existed in a sort of cloud of happiness, surrounded by the admiration that feels so sweet in the heart of a woman. She left about 4 o'clock in the morning. Her husband, who had been asleep in a quiet room, put something warm over her shoulders. It was her modest, everyday coat. It contrasted with her elegant dress, and she felt embarrassed because the other women were putting on expensive coats. She wanted to escape quickly and not be noticed. Loisel held her back, saying, "Wait a bit. It's cold outside. I'll call a cab." But she did not listen to him and descended the stairs as fast as she could. When they reached the street, they could not find a cab. One passed in the distance, but the noise of the horses drowned Loisel's call. They began to walk, shivering with cold. At last they found a cab. It took them home, and they returned sadly to their small apartment. Everything was ended for her. As for him, he remembered that he must be at work at 10 o'clock that morning. She removed her scarf in front of the mirror to see herself once more in her dress and jewelry. But suddenly she let out a horrified cry. She no longer had the necklace around her neck. "What is the matter with you?" demanded her husband. I've lost Madame Forestier's necklace, she cried in terror. What? How? Impossible. They searched among the folds of her dress and her coat, in her pockets, everywhere, but did not find it. You're sure you had it on when you left the palace? He asked. Yes, I felt it as I put on my coat. But if you had lost it in the street, we would have heard it fall. It must be in the cab. Yes, probably. Did you take its number? No. And you didn't notice it? No. They looked, horrified, at each other. Finally, Loisel put on his coat. I'll go back on foot, he said, over the whole route, to see if I can find it. He went out. She remained in her evening dress, without the strength to undress. Her husband returned about 7 o'clock. He had found nothing. He went to police headquarters, to the newspaper offices to offer a reward. He went to the cab companies, everywhere that might keep hope alive. She waited all day, in the same condition of mad fear about this terrible disaster. Loisel returned at night with a tired, pale face. He had discovered nothing. You must write to your friend, he said, telling her that you have broken the necklace and you are having it mended. That will give us time to think. She wrote what he said. At the end of a week they had lost all hope. Loisel, who had aged 5 years, said, We must consider how to replace the lost necklace. The necklace had been in a box with the name of a jeweller's shop on it. They took the box to the shop, and the jeweller looked through his records of past sales. It was not I, madam, who sold that necklace. I must have supplied only the box. Then they went from jeweller to jeweller, searching for a necklace like the lost one, trying to remember exactly what it was like. Eventually, they found a shop which had a string of diamonds that seemed exactly like the lost one. It was worth 40,000 francs. They could have it for 36. So they begged the jeweler not to sell it for 3 days. And they agreed that he could buy it back for 34,000 francs if they found the lost necklace before the end of February. Loisel had 18,000 francs, which his father had left to him when he died. He would borrow the rest. He did borrow, asking 1,000 francs of one person, 500 of another, a little here and a little there. He was desperate. He borrowed from lenders who charged high rates of interest. He compromised all the rest of his life, risked signing agreements without knowing whether he could keep them. He knew the black misery that was falling on him, and he was filled with horror as he handed 36,000 francs to the jeweler. When Madame Loisel took the necklace to her friend, Madame Forestier said to her rather coldly, You should have returned it sooner, I might have needed it. She did not open the case, as Mathilde had feared. If she had noticed the exchange, what would she have thought? What would she have said? Surely she would have thought Madame Loisel a thief. After that, Madame Loisel experienced the horrible life that very poor people have. She suffered, however, with sudden heroism. That dreadful debt must be paid. She would pay it. They left their home and rented a cheap room in a poor part of the city. She learned what heavy physical work was like. She washed dishes in kitchens, using her delicate fingers on dirty pots and pans. She washed people's dirty clothes and towels. She carried buckets of dirty water and carried clean water upstairs, stopping for breath at every floor. She went in poor clothes to the food shops and markets, arguing about prices and being insulted, defending every miserable little coin that she had. Every month they had to pay off some of their debts or ask for more time to pay. Her husband worked evenings after his daytime job, doing accounts for a shopkeeper. And late at night he copied documents for a few coins per page. This life lasted 10 years. At the end of 10 years, they had paid everything, including the original sum and the extra money that the lenders had charged. Madame Loisel looked old now. She had become a typical poor woman, strong, tough and rough. With badly combed hair, scruffy clothes and red hands, she talked loudly while washing floors. But sometimes, when her husband was at the office, she sat down near the window and she thought of that happy evening long ago, of that party at the minister's palace where she had been so beautiful and so admired. What would have happened if she had not lost that necklace? Who knows? How strange life is. How small a thing can change our lives completely. Then one Sunday in the park, relaxing from the tasks of the week, she suddenly noticed a woman with a child. It was Madame Forestier, still young, still beautiful, still attractive. Madame Loisel felt moved. Should she speak to her? Yes, certainly. And now that all the debts had been repaid, she would tell her all about it. Why not? She approached her old friend. Good day, Jeanne. Madame Forestier did not recognize her. So she was surprised, but Madame, I don't know, you must be mistaken. No. I'm Mathilde Loisel. Her friend was shocked. Oh, my poor Mathilde. How you have changed. Yes, I've had very hard times since I last saw you, and many miseries, and that was because of you. Because of me. How so? Do you remember that diamond necklace you lent me to wear at the minister's party? Yes. Well, I lost it. What do you mean? You brought it back to me. I brought you back another one just like it. And it has taken us 10 years to pay for it. You can understand that it was not easy for us, who had nothing. But now, at last, it's over. And I'm really happy. Madame Forestier had stopped. You say you bought a necklace of diamonds to replace mine? Yes. You didn't realize, did you? They were very similar and she smiled with pride and simple joy. Madame Forestier, deeply moved, took her friend's hands. Oh, my poor Mathilde. My necklace was false, just glass. It was worth only a few 100 francs.